It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. It's the Unnamed Indie place for independent comic fandom. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. It's the Unnamed Indie place for independent comic fandom. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west.
Three, two, one. What is going on, everyone? You're watching the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and his sidekick Ash. Good to see everyone. Welcome to the show. Most importantly, good to see you, Skip. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good. Got some indie comics I've been reading. Got some indie comics that we're gonna talk about. Me and Ash on a Monday. Is it night? I don't know. I'm in California. We're in California, and still pretty bright outside.
Yeah, the daylight savings is kicking in, throwing everyone off. The summertime where the sun just doesn't go down. Besides what we're going to be talking about, is there any comics that I'm not aware of that you haven't told me about? What's going on? What are you reading?
Oh shoot! All right, yeah. I told myself I'd be more prepared for this.
Oh, that's right. While you're
But
looking for that, I'm going to give a shout out to our show's non-sponsor,
yeah,
Corona. They absolutely do not sponsor us, but I drink their beer while we do the podcast. So shout out to Corona Familiar, and hopefully you guys have a nice, refreshing beverage as well.
yeah, I'm hoping they do. I thank you again for Corona for giving us nothing but except for something to talk about while I get my comics together. I've got LaCroix, limoncello LaCroix, I guess.
Oh,
I've never
fancy.
taken enough French, but
If you can't
that's
pronounce it,
here.
it must be good.
That's how that's how I feel. Um, I should have said it more with French. It's like you could mess up the pronunciation, but say it with confidence and like with a little, say it with your chest a little bit, and it'll fly. They're cool with it.
And make sure you
So
add
I
a little disgust to your voice. Like, ugh,
it helps.
LaCroix. Ugh.
Yeah, yeah. Even if it's the best stuff that you've ever had, if you could just act like it's drivel, then it really puts the emphasis on it. Takes you over the top. So yeah, drinking on that. Got some Gatorade bottles around me that are tapped out. One probably got swallow, so I'll pop the LaCroix after that. I've been reading quite a bit of comics. Got The Worst Dudes. I'll start with that one. A very interesting, very interesting story. From Aubrey Sitterson and my homie Tony Grigori. Go Heat, because I'm a proxy Miami Heat fan. Also Red Room by Ed Piskor. Um, I like probably many of us here. I watch Cartoonist Kayfabe, and he had been talking about it. So when it came out, I had the opportunity to purchase it, and it's a very interesting book. It's very much what he advertises it as, but there is a storyline to it. There is a through line which I think is interesting, but it was hard for me to push past all of the graphic images within there. And also rereading Coffin Bound just because that book is so awesome. Uh, the the Nice House on the Lake. Is that what it's called? That new book
Yeah,
by
that's a
James
Vertigo
Tynion?
book, I believe, but Vertigo counts, I guess.
Yeah, Vertigo. Oh, like I guess Black Label.
Oh, it's
That's
not
DC's
Vertigo,
new
right, is
label.
it? They killed Vertigo.
Yeah, Vertigo is no longer with us.
Still can't understand that. Whatever. It's Vertigo to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah. There you go. But yeah, then that was probably maybe I didn't have high hopes for that book. I kind of read it out of social guilt for not getting on board with Department of Truth and something is killing the children. So I was like, well, it's a new number one independent by James Tynion. Let me read it. And I'm happy to report that I did enjoy it while still feeling like it's going to have a lot of the similarities from what I heard of Something's Killing the Children, not the story, but just how James Tynion's idiosyncrasies and how he rolls out stories. But what have you been reading, Ash?
I haven't been reading a lot of diverse stuff. I picked up Red Room, but I just haven't gone around to it yet because I'm just backlogged on other stuff. But you know, I haven't been quiet lately. I have been completely blown away by UltraMega, which I've been busy tracking down all the issues. I finally got all 3 issues. I had to get 2 of them online. One of them I found at a local store. And then this other book, Erratic, which I was completely blown away with. I've been hearing people talk about this book forever. And, I was like, it's AWA. People are always talking about an AWA book, something. And this Erratic is weird. And Purge has been talking about it. And then you had it on the list. For those of you guys listening, we have like a little background list, behind the scenes where we kind of nominate books about what's going to go on the show. Have you read this? We communicate. And Erratic was on Skip's list. And I was like, it's about time I check this book out and see what all the huff and puff is about. And I was like, ooh, exciting. So I really, really, really liked Erratic. And so I spent time tracking all those down. Found a seller. I got super lucky. Seller on eBay sold the whole series for $10, plus $9 shipping and handling. So still, when you take a $4, I mean, still it's a cover price, $4 a piece. So I was very excited because there was no one else selling a lot of that book. I was the only one, and I bid it. I waited till the last second, was like, minimum bid, got it. So I got those, and I'm happy to report they came in excellent condition. And I've been reading Noctera. That's a book I've been really enjoying. It's I'm a Snot Rider fan, and this book has been delivering for me. I think there are certain regulars in our audience that would enjoy this book quite a bit. And Geiger was a book I was very excited because it's like, oh, Jeff Johns, he's kind of on this huge pedestal for me. I very much admire him for the talent that he is. And when that first issue came out, I was like, oh, I mean, it was okay. It wasn't like it was bad, but I was expecting ultra greatness, and it was just sort of there. And I was like, oh. But the second issue really started to pick up and like get the story going. And so I was like, okay, cool. All right, I'm going to keep going on this. And I'm very much a wasteland kind of Mad Max feel. I love those post-apocalyptic kind of, after World War III type thing, that's a genre that's just cool for me. So seeing Jeff Johns do a pseudo superhero story set in that, I mean, it's kind of like Mad Max with a superhero. The way exactly. I can express it. And he's just a good writer. I know I'm in capable hands, and Gary Frank's art. And so I'm very happy to keep following that book. So that's kind of what I've been into the past couple weeks. Wonder what the audience is into. You guys throw into your comments. We love to hear what you guys are reading too, by the way. And if you have an interesting comment, we'll voice it on air. So you decided you picked up UltraMega.
Yeah, I bought it when it first came out.
Hmm. So you were the one holding out on me.
I guess so.
Because I
Yeah, same
found
with
out about it late.
erratic too.
I found out
Oh
about
yeah,
it late. Yeah, I know you weren't holding out on me on Erratic. I should have listened to you closer. But UltraMega, man,
that's all right.
I feel like, man, why didn't people tell me more? Like, I love this book so much. But maybe they did. Maybe I just wasn't listening.
You know, it is kind of interesting, or like it like just jumping on books. That either I'm only like I don't know a lot about, but I'm just purchasing because I'm supporting someone, or B, it's just interesting to me. You, and then I think a lot of us in this, comic book community, if you're here, you're a part of it. We probably end up going and trying to find videos to see how people are reviewing it, what do they think, or just general discussions, which we try to provide obviously our own bit of that here. But when you go out and you don't find like a lot of people talking about it, it kind of it kind of does feel a little weird. Like you mentioned it to a few people, and then they're like, "Oh, I haven't read it yet," and maybe they seem like they're interested, maybe they're not, or you do get the occasional like, "Oh yeah, I've read that," and then you get to talk about it. But when you put it out there and there's not a lot of people that have been talking about it, you don't see it. I think it kind of just falls in the wayside. It's not even like a shame type thing, but it's like okay, well, let me move on to maybe something else that people have been interested in. So I'm glad that Perch was talking about erratic so much, because I mainly like I'm not a big I've talked about this before. I'm not a big Spider-Man comics fan. The character is interesting to me, but I've never really gotten to Spider-Man comics as much as I tried. And sure enough, this book comes out. I'm just supporting it. My homie Reber, the guy who colored it, I'm just buying it to support him. But naturally, I read it, and I remember reading it, and like I was raving all about it, like online and whatnot. And I wasn't really getting much of a response back from people. And I was like, oh. And then when Perch started talking about it, I noticed other people started talking about it, and I was like, oh man, Perch, thank you. And then he had like Kari Andrews, one of his streams, right? Like they were talking and stuff. He like interviewed him.
Yeah, I missed that stream. I didn't even know he did it. Now I got to go find it.
Yeah, he had him on there, and they were talking about it, and I'm like, oh dang, how like small world. Like he knows Kari Andrews, or at least reached out and was able to get him on there. So it's kind of interesting because like that's what I'm learning as I'm in this community. We're talking about indie books. It's interesting how they, kind of how they go around and whatnot. Ash, I'm gonna hand it over to you. I got like a little family phone call that I'm getting. So
All right. Well, speaking about erratic, Skip and I have been talking about behind the scenes. On the next episode of the Indie Comic Show, we are going to be featuring the whole series. It's 5 issues, so it's not like it's gigantic. But the trade paperback comes out this Wednesday, and it's only $9.99. So you can get all 5 issues for half the price I paid. And I highly recommend it. If oh, did I lose Skip completely from the stream? Oh, there he's back. So, highly recommend picking that up, and then we're going to be covering that in 2 weeks, so you can join us and see what all the all the excitement is about. If you like Spider-Man, not just necessarily the character of Peter Parker, but the style, the sort of whimsical nature, and I'm talking about like classic Spider-Man. I'm not necessarily talking about all the dumb stuff that they've done with him over the decades, but maybe you go back to the old Stan Lee stuff, or some of the cool, fun stuff Michelini did with them in the 80s when, McFarlane kind of reinvigorated the character, and Eric Larson. That sort of fun, just humorous character almost. Like one of the funny things I liked, when I discovered Spider-Man was how he would troll his enemies. He'd be fighting Rhino or something in the streets, and he would just be basically trolling him and making fun of him as he was fighting him. And when a good writer was able to do that, it just was fun. And I was always, I grew up as an edgelord. So when all the comics I was reading in the 80s, I started off with X-Men. but I was like Punisher, Daredevil, and I was like more of the dark, serious, brooding type stories. And so Spider-Man was a very refreshing change of pace for me at the time. And I don't necessarily want all my comics that way, but when I came onto Erratic, it blew me away because, number one, Kari Andrews' writing is just on point. He knows how to move the story and keep you engaged. He makes these characters feel like characters. They all have different voices. It's not the Bendis effect. I'm not here to rag on Bendis, but I'm saying it's not like where you're just like, oh, I don't know, these word balloons I could mix and match, and it'd be these characters. It's a high school book, but it feels authentic. It feels like Kari's writing children, not actually writing 40-year-olds in a high school kid's body, like the way like 40-year-olds think kids talk. It just feels, and it has a lot of the things that you will remind you what a good story of that type does. That nostalgia story that takes you back and goes, oh, I remember what it was like. You remember the insecurities when you're a freshman in high school and you're like, oh my God, do I, just trying to like fit in, and the different social pecking order, groups. And it's just very interesting. And I loved one of the things they do. I don't want to talk too much about this book, but one of the cool things that they do is they make the teachers kind of pseudo villains. And I was like, this is really kind of genius, because in a 15-year-old's eyes, like your world when you're 15 is so limited. Like the villains of your world are your teachers, and you're just like, especially if they're bad teachers, you're just like, F this guy, or, this girl, this teacher, this woman, like, you're just like, I hate that class. She's such a, and they make these characters almost like cartoon mustache twirling villains. And it's just done in a really excellent way. We'll talk more about it. We can show you, hopefully, if that at all sounds interesting to you, I highly encourage you to pick up the trade if you can't get the floppies. Like I said, it's only $9.99, so you're getting a really great deal. You might even get a discount on it. So yeah, Skip, just jump in whenever you're back, because I don't know when you're back.
I back like I never left.
Awesome. So that was good. So I stalled them with erratic talk.
Oh, they should be mesmerized by now. If you're quiet enough, you can hear all the clicks of all the purchases going on and all of the erratics being shipped to all of the people joining us in the chat as we speak. So
$9.99 for the trade. Get it.
Oh man, dang, that's awesome.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's a killer price, especially for the quality of story that you get, and the art too, the coloring, everything's on point. Yeah, I think people are in for a pleasant surprise. It definitely made me want to go and check out the rest of the AWA line, all of the books that are supposed to kind of spawning out of Resistance, all the books that are supposed to be connected within that universe, to see if maybe later on down the line, everybody links up and they do a crossover thing. I got a feeling that's like a little bit of what AWA is trying to get in on, trying to get in on some of that connectivity that Valiant left behind when Dinesh sold it off. But we will see. There's some time.
I'm hoping that their shared universe kicks off the ground, because that was the whole thing that got me excited about them. And then all these books that were coming out are all these sort of like separate horror books, like they were trying to be like Vertigo, which is fine. It's just not what they sold me on. And I was like, wait a second, where's all the superhero stuff, shared universe thing that you advertise? I don't see it. Like, right. I'm personally not into the Vertigo horror stuff, and I'm not against it, because I absolutely understand and respect that it has this audience. And the people that love it, I totally want them to have those books. I was just like, wait, this is the thing you said you were bringing. So Erratic is apparently one of the first books, and it was a home run. I do not give 5 stars out very often for a book. Erratic was a 5-star book for me. So yeah, I told them in 2 weeks we're going to be doing the trade. So I was giving them the heads up to get it so they could come back and join us in the fun and talk all about the book.
Absolutely. Highly recommend it. Well, we've gone over some erratic. People know what to look forward to here soon. Um, we've talked a little bit about Ultra Mega, and we'll be talking more in depth about it here in a little bit. But our first segment, our first book up at bat, to just have a terrible a, a terrible pun, synonym, metaphor, all of the above. Firepower issue number 12. Oversized issue, Ash. What
Oversized.
covers did you end up getting after all?
I only got
This one we
one
had a bunch of
cover.
variants on this one.
I only got one cover because I tried to stay on a budget. Um, I picked up the Frank Miller Ninja cover because he's my boy. Oops. Looks like we might be spinning.
Oh yeah.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, I wasn't able to hear you for a moment. We'll give it a sec.
YouTube. Okay, now YouTube saying I don't have enough video. Okay. There's the be right back screen. Okay, so we're back to live. All right, so what I was saying is I picked up the Frank Miller variant. I don't have the picture of it, but that's what I got because he's my boy, you know.
Heck yeah, man. I expected that. I knew you at least had to get good old Frank's variant. I myself, I grabbed the cover A and the other Frank, Mr. Quietly, or Quite Frankly, if you will.
You got the Frank Quietly?
That was the number one. That was the number one variant that I wanted to get. That was at the top of my list. I wanted to get about 4 or 5 of them, and I say want, not fully intended, but wanted to get that. I had budgeted to get um I had budgeted to get 3, and I ended up not getting a book because none of my shops had this book. So I didn't get a particular book. So I could have gotten 4 if I wanted to, but I ended up doing my best Ash impression. I got Frank Miller as well.
Yeah.
You know, those ninjas from I thought because those are what's his name? Oh gosh, I'm getting the name effect again. I don't know, but anyway, they were Wei Lun's ninjas. So Wei Lun's ninjas with a bunch of throwing stars on the image, in the style of Frank Miller. It's just flat out one of the best ones. And then since I do like Wei Lun, I like that he has an iPod, OG iPod, and that he wears Jordan. I believe those are 6s.
I have to say
I have.
the Frank Quietly is probably objectively my favorite cover.
Yeah.
I'm just a Frank Miller fanboy, and I was like, God, it's so close. I'm just gonna get the Frank Miller because he's my boy. But I really love that Frank Quietly cover, and I debated at the shop for a little bit. That's why I put it as the thumbnail for the show too. Was that cover? Yeah. I thought I'd go. I do want to get the A cover just for consistency. But yeah. I have a feeling I'll be able to pick up the A cover later, probably. So if I really want to, I can do that. But you know what I was thinking? One of the other covers I really loved, I told you, was that manga looking cover.
Yeah,
I think I know who that is.
Good.
I think that's the artist that's doing the We Only Find Them When They're Dead, the Al Ewing sci-fi book.
That would make sense. Okay.
So that's a cool book too, by the way. People, if you guys like sci-fi stuff and you like manga style art and everything, it's got really cool art. It's a pretty good story, and it just came off a hiatus. But not to derail, let's get into Firepower.
Indeed, I'm gonna let you take it away, Ash.
Well, I'll read the introduction. How's that? Because I am no Skip and Tosh when it comes to doing the. I think you do a masterful job, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Go for it.
All right. So, previously, the war between Scorched Earth Clan and the Temple of the Flaming Fist has begun. After being shot out of the sky, Owen battled the Dragon's Claw, only to recognize Ling Zan fighting alongside him in the midst of battle. Ma Guang appealed to his former temple allies to see how they had been misled and to turn on Chao Fang. Overwhelmed by the continued attack with Wei Lun and Chen Zul, Chao Fang commanded Master Sha's statue to arise in the temple's darkest hour of need. So that's where we left off on issue 11. You with us still, Skip? Do I lose some connection? I lost Skip. Wah, wah, wah. Oh, apparently Skip has had a family, not a family emergency, I want to say, but a family detour. So I will do my best to carry on the show. Tehillim in the chat says next episode Ash marries Frank Miller. That'd be fun. I would marry Frank Miller. Just kidding. I wouldn't. I don't swing that way. Zach says he wants to get the McFarlane cover. You murdered that guy. Welcome back to the Temple of Tomes. I'm your host, Indie Comic Jones. I don't know what that's about, but it was worth reading. So hopefully Skip will be back quickly. I don't know what's going on. Sometimes real life happens. We are real people, believe it or not. We are not robots. So carrying on with the show. You guys remember we left off the big battle at the temple, and it's going to revive the statue, the master, and that's where we start off here. I'm terrible with the names, even though I just read them. I need to write down. I keep telling myself to do this, and I never do. Chao Fang is waiting for the statue to animate. See Wei Lun, he's worried. And then he's like, damn it. Eventually it doesn't happen. And so the fighting continues. And they Wei Lun's like, we got to stop him. He's going to go wake the dragon. And we see Chao Fang going to the big dragon room that I think last we saw, this was in the Prelude graphic novel where Owen had entered. He'd secretly entered. So we see Chao Fang is now in the dragon room, and he speaks words, which was one of the big deals in the Prelude novel. Owen never said anything, and we heard Wei Lun ask him, "Did you say any words?" And that was like a big deal. Like, what if you say words? Does that awake? Like, what happens? We don't know. So he says, "Arise," and again, it's like nothing happens, and he's like, "No, arise." And Chao Fang and Wei Lun and Owen show up, and they're like, "What? Nothing's happened," but Chao Fang's, he's intent on thwarting his enemies, and he dives into the pool that's in the middle of the room, and Wei Lun, and Owen look at each other and like, how deep's that pool? And he's like, let's find out together. And they dive in, and they dive, and it's deeper and deeper and deeper until they eventually come out, and they're in some sort of like underground cave with a island in the middle, and we can see the footsteps as Chao Fang has gone up to the top of the sandy beach island or whatever this is, and they confront him, and they talk about how it's warm in here, and this is the source of the warmth of the temple, and blah blah blah. And they basically say, look, Chao Fang, we've been all lied to. Like, all this betrayal, you're fighting over nothing. Like, there's no point to this anymore. And he calls him old friend. Chao Fang gets triggered and says, I was never your friend. And so they start to fight. and they kind of disable him pretty quickly, 2 against 1. And Wei Long's like, just why fight us? What is it for? All the things that you've done, everything, it's nothing. And he finally just breaks down, and just kind of, you can see in his face, he's just like, oh man, yeah, you're right, almost. So he's just distraught. He's like, how is this possible? It's all a lie. And they tell him they're gonna take him away and lock him up, and he's just given up. And they drag him off, and you can see the footsteps walking back into the water, and Chao Feng's dragging his feet. And something is interesting in the very last panel, and you can see just where the shore meets the water, it looks like something down there. If you guys can see, Skip is not back yet. Really testing me, Skip. I can't do this show alone. So I'm going to stop here and talk about my thoughts. This was a big lead up episode or issue. And are we skipping Skip? Hopefully not. Hopefully keep our fingers crossed there's no super big emergency. Hopefully Skip didn't leave me for a pretty girl out in his backyard. That would be sad. Anyways, so we left off in the last issue that the big promise of this big exercised issue and what was going to happen. And Kirkman is kind of known for his twists and turns and big plot reveals and things like that. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the things I love about Oblivion Song. Oblivion Song is like every story arc is just like, you thought what was happening? Boom, this, and it's just the onion constantly getting peeled back. And Oblivion Song is fantastic at that. I mean, it's like the point of the book is if you've ever seen the show Lost, especially the first season where it's like, oh, he crash landed on this island. What is this island? Oh, there's weird, like, why is there a polar bear on this island? Why is there dark smoke? What's this underground chamber? Like, all this stuff, like, the whole point of the show is a mystery. Like, what is going on? Oblivion Song is very much like that. But he doesn't do all of his books that way. For example, Invincible. It's a very straightforward book. And Firepower is also as well, but he is known for doing that. And so I was expecting big twists. I just wasn't expecting that the twist would be nothing happens. It's pretty cool. It's just, I guess sometimes having your expectations defied isn't the best. Sometimes you kind of want to see, you kind of, when you're promised something, you kind of hope to see it delivered. And I have a feeling that I think that this is sort of a red herring. And that's why that last panel with the dragon scales, I think is such a big clue, is I think that Hickman is going to give us the big reveals, the big twists. I think that the whole point so far of this issue is that not just yet. We're going to make you wait a little bit longer. So, that's where we have here. Zach says you lost Skip. You better go find him. I think I already said that. As a matter of fact, I had some Biden moment. I need to drink more beer. I can only stall so long. Doug Johnson says he got the A cover and the McFarlane cover. Plan to give the McFarlane to our son, who's been collecting Spawn books since last year. Very nice. Frank Miller cover was all the rage at the comic book shop last week. That's good to hear. That's very good to hear. It's a good cover. So, I don't know what you guys thought about this. I have a feeling that this island here is the dragon sleeping, and it's just collected sand all over it. That's what I'm thinking. I'm not sure still about the statue, but I kind of like this. It leads into the next scene. So the story goes on, and they come out of the temple, and all the monks from the Flaming Fist Temple, which were the enemy, but now they're not anymore, are all cheering because Chao Feng was kind of a shitty leader. It's kind of the impression they hated being under him. So now he's, no longer. And presumably Wei Lung is back, and everyone loves Wei Lung, and they're all happy. And even one of I forget what you call him, but I guess he's like the leader of the Scorched Earth. He says, "Appear you have your temple back. Congratulations. I promise to attack far less frequently in the future." And so they kind of have a little good laugh. It's going to be interesting to see these two temples. Really, are they going to continue fighting? I don't know. We get a moment where Owen sees, oh gosh, what's her name? This is why I really need to write. I'm going to do it. I'm promise. I'll write these names down. I'm just going to call her what's her name? The girl that he fell in love with in the Prelude graphic novel. She was one of the students at the temple, and he's like, basically this is the first time he's got to confront her and talk to her. And she explains that she was a plant from the Scorched Earth clan all along, and she was there to try to get him to convert and come over, but she was found out, and so her father faked her death, yada yada. And that's why, and he says to her, "Was what we had ever real?" And then she just kind of diverts and says, "You have a life now. You're married with two wonderful children. You have I'm happy for you." And he looks away, and she looks back, and you can see the sadness on her face. So she definitely still in love with him. And this makes me kind of, I don't know what to think. I cannot stand love triangles. They just never seem to work right. I don't know. So I'm hoping Kirkman doesn't really go this route. Because what's going to happen? Is he going to be with her? Is he going to divorce his wife? Is his wife going to die so that he can be with her? Is she going to die? There's never a good solution in my book. But Kirkman is a great writer. I'm going to trust that he's going to do something well with this, and hopefully not go into that. And we basically kind of get an epilogue in the middle of the book. I think that's why this book was a double-sized issue. Hey, Skip, are you back?
Back?
Yes. Whew, I was drowning. I was floundering. So I'll just finish off. We get the epilogue here. It's kind of in the middle of the issue. This issue kind of, to me, seemed very transitory. It seemed to be both the end of the arc and the beginning of a new one in many ways. So Owen confronts the master. He's like, "Why didn't you ever tell me? Blah, blah, blah." And he's like, "Oh, please, can you admit that you still wish you didn't know?" And Owen, of course, the master always puts him in this place. He's always like, kinda, yeah, but he's like, "Is that all? I seriously don't think I can handle any more of your secrets." And he just like diverts. He's like, "Yo, you got your family to go be with." So we see the family. I'll leave it there. That's a whole new scene. So Skip, welcome back. I hope everything is okay on that side. Your thoughts so far of everything I've talked about the book up to this point. I want to give you ample time to say what you like.
Yeah, I'm still enjoying the storytelling. I'm still enjoying the complexity of the story, and it seems to, layers get added on and kind of get peeled back to reveal a little bit more. Still enjoying that part, and I do agree with you. This issue did feel very transitional, closing some chapters, or at least appearing to close some chapters. Let's say maybe getting some temporary closure on one, some particular parts, but then definitely opening up and kind of guiding our eyes to other parts that had kind of already been seeded, but now again the layers are being peeled back, so we're seeing a little bit more of the petal than seen before. And same, some of it kind of I didn't know completely how to feel, but with the trust that I put in Robert Kirkman from works that he's done that other people have invested in that I didn't that didn't completely hook me, like The Walking Dead and Oblivion Song and and Invincible. And also what I've taken from him in this particular story, I'm gonna let that kind of settle. I'm just gonna continue on the story from here because the quality of the book and the other things I'm still enjoying plenty of. But you feel it's a little bit of a, it's almost like when you open up the book and it's shaped. Like if you go from left, it's like a on high, and then it goes down into the gutter, and from the gutter it kind of goes back up. Like the way that a comic is shaped when you're reading it and it's open is a little bit of the way that this book felt when I was reading it.
Okay. Um, any comments, plot wise, any theory things of like what's happened, like, because we talked about when they went in the water, and there's that very kind of important panel where you see the tracks in the sand as they leave, and you see the scales. Or any thoughts about the statue of the old master? Like he didn't come to life like maybe we thought he might. Um, any thoughts about that yet?
Yeah, I'm thinking that the serpent, exactly what it's called, the serpent something, the omen something, but I'm starting to think that that's related to the dragon. I mean, like,
Oh,
dragons, they're snakes and they have scales just like snakes have scales. They're like snakes with wings that breathe fire, right? And they still got like long tongues usually and stuff
man, I
too.
didn't even put that together until you just said that. That's so
Yeah.
crazy. No, you're right. Yeah, because Asian Oriental dragons, if you will, they're very serpent-like. They don't have wings. They're just, yeah, they're almost like long serpents with feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, because there's a part in the comic ahead we haven't covered yet that'll lend to that as well. But keep going.
Right. And then the other portion is you were talking about it, love triangle, that may be occurring, and I made a comment that I was like, but what about love trapezoids?
I don't even know what that
Ash.
is.
It's
That maybe I could handle
some
because I've
odd
never
shape.
seen it before. So maybe if they make that work. Uh,
Okay. I think that might be something coming from that casual fling book
but
Green was
Kirkman
talking
seems
about that
to
might get a little
do
more
that.
to it.
He did that in Walking Dead.
Uh,
He did it in Invincible.
mhm,
He did it in Oblivion Song. And so I'm
mhm.
like, oh, please, no more love triangles. So
Yeah, I mean, like it's definitely from what you're saying, it seems like it's a trope of his, and writers that produce this much content, only usually get away from their tropes ever so often. But I mean, I I I could take a love triangle if it's executed in such a way, but the idea of a love triangle within itself in the setting of this story doesn't necessarily exactly excite me. But again, I'm gonna hold out and see what happens. I did really enjoy the Lingzon character earlier on, and it does add a layer of complexity. And if I'm following along with the characters, I put myself inside of Owen's shoes or his head or his heart. There, he didn't get proper closure on that, and now it's opened up in a certain way, and even the way that here on this page or the page before, even the way that they close things out, you know everybody didn't really say how they really felt. Obviously, people were very respectful, which is good, and kind of restrained and reserved. I think he probably could have closed a chapter on it more if she said how she really felt now and he said how he really felt now, and hopefully they don't act on it because he's married. But I think at least that, for the character within a story, could have gave it some true closure to where we as readers can say we're going to close that chapter, but we can't say that because that's not how that part ended. It was more of it was more of like a bit of a stalemate where this story still has a lot more road that it's going to travel. So we're gonna keep an eye on it. I'm gonna keep an open mind, and I'm gonna hope that Kirkman surprises me, and I hope he really surprises and delights Ash if he with
well,
such
the
a
one
thing.
thing I
But we'll
have to
see.
say I already talked about, Kirkman's a good writer, so I trust him. The love triangles that he's done, he's resolved in a way that wasn't completely tasteless. There's really bad love triangles, Pearl Harbor, that just make you despise the story. But, Kirkman was able to handle like The Walking Dead, just one of them gets eaten by zombies. It's solved. And it works for that book. And Oblivion Song, it was the way that kind of resolved was more of just kind of like regret. And it ended up working out. The characters just moved on. And I was a little bit unfair. I guess Invincible, the love triangle is really minor. And it's kind of like high school love anyway. So you're just like, So I didn't want to get too big of a thing. So I guess I should have more faith knowing that he dabbles in it, but he doesn't like go full on and just, I don't, if it were a bad writer, I would expect, him to be like, having an affair in between and he's given in, he's got a wife back. I don't want to see that. I don't think he will. Hasn't been that type of writer. And this doesn't seem like that type of book. This is not a tawdry kind of storytelling. This is very much fun, high adventure, kung fu with mystic arts. And, so I don't expect it's going anywhere. It just raised my red flags is all.
Absolutely. No, makes sense. Makes sense. And we've got some investments in some characters, which is, masterful writing. We're invested in Kelly, his wife. We want to see that go well. I've got a feeling that, Kirkman being Kirkman, and it's I haven't seen very many writers to a degree go so far away from their moral codes in story, for the most part, especially when things relating to marriage. So I got a feeling Robert, he's gonna do right by Kelly. I got a feeling, and I think Ling Zan's gonna get the short end of the katana, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's kind of unfortunate because I was talking about like with love triangles, you can solve them very easily by killing one of the characters. I don't necessarily want to do that. I mean, we already thought Ling Zan was dead. I don't want her just to find out she's alive and have her die again. I don't really want Kelly to die so that he can be with Ling Zan. That feels, like But I think
we got Ma Guang. Where Ma Guang at? let's hook them up. Ling Zan and Ma Guang.
Well,
Bam, there you go.
What I was thinking was maybe this is actually a good thing because we can tell the story of how good Owen is by presenting like, look, he's got this character who's his first love, but he still's never unfaithful to his wife. He's very, and by showing him doing the right things, even though he's presented in this situation and having to deal with this, he doesn't give into these, any sort of temptations, and he's a good father and a husband. And like, maybe that's a setup to show, because if you don't challenge a character, then it's hard to say that character really stood for anything. So maybe we're going to get something like that. But let's go. I'll let you pick up and where I left off, where they're back on the Scorched Earth Island with Kelly.
Indeed. Yep. The kids and Kelly on Gilligan's Island, getting some martial arts lessons in, and she's telling the kids, they're improving. She's just letting them know, like, hey, don't hold back, which is really good advice, just in general for the situation that they're in. Naturally, we would understand why they would. They don't want to hurt their mother, but lo and behold, there goes that one lady that we thought Owen had killed with the flaming sword, or with the sword, run her through. The one that was on the airplane, and they jumped out, and it was snakes on the plane. She showed up, and they got a little fight going on. They're going back and forth, and finally, Kelly's had enough, so she pulls out the sidearm, if you will, pops a few in the direction of the Serpent Clan lady's person, and she just bursts into a bunch of snakes, and they kind of slither off, slither away. You can see Kelly. She's just like, dang. I thought that was gonna, thought that was gonna be it, but the snakes get away, and she's concerned. She knows that it's just not over yet. There was only two snakes, two shots that she fired that left. And then Owen walks up behind, and he's all happy because he believes that that part of what they're dealing with is over. They can head home and be okay. But as the family embraces, Kelly's still looking that way, like it's probably not over. And even Owen himself kind of displays a little bit of that. So Owen and Kelly go in the show. She shows the snakes to Wei Lun and to Chow Fang. And, they're like, hey, as crazy as it sounds, I thought I was hallucinating too when I was on the plane and I saw it. But guess what? It's real. Here we go. We got evidence. These two things shot through. What are we going to do about it? And Wei Lun is just like, hey, this what we're going to do about it is what we've trained for. We're going to stay focused. Always going to be. Ash, how did you feel about that? This being the portion that it kind of had already opened up for us some many issues back, but seems like one of the main things that they're going to be facing going forward, this whole Serpent Clan, mystical thing.
I felt really good about it. I feel like, especially in retrospect, after I've digested the whole story, this scene plays out a little different for me now. Also because I read a comment in the letters page, which was very encouraging. But this almost seems like origin story complete. Like now we're going into the real stuff. That's what it feels like to me now. Like that firepower is not just the story of Owen learning the firepower. Like firepower is all these characters. It's Owen, it's Wei Lun, it's his wife Kelly, Ma Gui, and it's all going to be about the serpents are going to be a big deal, whatever the case is. I'm feeling that dragon may be involved. I have a feeling they're going to discover a much bigger thing that no one knew about, and they're going to tackle it not as like a team, like they're like the Justice League or anything, but they'll be working together as allies and so forth. And I just, that's kind of what I feel like. And I think this whole scene with Wei Lun being like, we do what we always do. We stay focused and always be ready. And I think that's sort of the cement that's gonna hold that together. I just wanted to comment one thing. I really like this scene where she shoots the snakes, and she's horrified. As anyone rightly would be if you saw a person that was made up of snakes like this. And I just love the timing of how Owen shows up, and he's like, "Good news!" Like because he has clueless, he has no idea what just happened, and right. I thought that was really good, like a good beat, if you will. And of course, the kids are just happy to see their dad. She's shocked and horrified, like, "Oh my god! Like what's going on?" And then his emotion on his face is seemingly for a whole different reason, because he just talked to what's her name? God, I'm so bad with these names.
Kelly?
No, his first love.
Oh, Ling Zan.
So yeah, he had just confronted Ling Zan. So he's got all these emotions going on. She's got different emotions, but they're not really connected here because he just walked up on the scene, doesn't know what's happening. And I just thought that was I just like the way that it played out. I just thought Kirkman wrote that scene really cool. So that's all my thoughts on that.
Yeah, makes complete sense, and it's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out going forward. But I do like the idea that we start with one people with we get a supporting cast going for, and we build the story out that way, and then moving forward, part of that supporting cast kind of comes to the forefront a little bit more, and the training for Kelly and the kids has been seeded all along the way, so it doesn't feel far-fetched, doesn't feel manufactured on the spot. feels very organic. So I like the idea of it, and that'll really kind of be nailed home as we get to like the very last page or the page before the letters page. But on this journey that we're on, they're finally leaving the scorched earth island. You know, Master Waylon is talking about how Owen, you got to come back. You got to train people again. Him, not only the relationship that they have, but him being the asset and having the firepower. And he's just like, hey, like let me get back home, get the settled. We'll discuss that later. So, um, Master Waylon gives him a fond farewell, and as Waylon is, feet down there in the ocean, help push the boat off, and he's waving back to Owen, waving back to him. Samney, his masterful visual storytelling. We have a shadowy figure, in the background, standing on top of a building, and when we get a zoom in, we see that that's Ling Zan, and we split that panel diagonally straight across the middle. We have Owen, you know, looking back and just they don't have to say anything. It just straight up looks like unfinished business.
Yeah.
Via Chris Samney. We got ourselves a nice jet in the sky flying back home. Kids hop out the car. Of course, they see Peanut Butter the dog, so they're excited to see it. And Owen's talking to his father, adopted father, but father nonetheless, the man that was there claimed the job. And he's, they're just talking about how, like, yeah, the dog gets more attention than us. The dog is, they're more excited to see the dog than us. Then grandma's name gets called, and dad's just like, hey, it's all over, son. Can we rest easy? And Owen's eye says, so. But the smile backs up what he's saying, probably more than him really meaning what he's saying. As they go inside of that, Kelly's partner and Reggie, and he has been helping as well. So talking about how the house looks fine and like nothing ever happened. He's talking about he covered for Kelly at her job, covered for the kids at school. So he just completely had her back. And they make a little joke about the neighborhood boy that was with them when they had gotten attacked and what his whole alibi and story was. So, and it's interesting. It's a little bit of a tense moment because she talked about as if he had killed the boy, and then he had some eyes, and then he was like, "Nah, like I got with him." His parents didn't believe him. I got with him, and they believed the story that I gave him. Basically because I'm a police officer. But now they're outside. It's just again Kelly and Owen, going back to the rock of the family, their relationship, and they're just talking about it, and things aren't over, and they know. And Owen's trying to reassure her, things will be better. Yeah, they won't go back to the same, but they'll be better. And if anything comes along, we'll be ready for it. And he's like, just trust me. And she says she does. And as they embrace, we get a second panel of a butterfly flying away, and it is the same butterfly that Owen saw when he first walked up to, or not the exact same butterfly, but maybe the same species. He saw when he went to the temple, and of course, that is going to remind him of Ling Zan and the unfinished business. How did that all play out for you, Ash?
I like this. This is one of the things that Kirkman does, what tropes, if you will, that I really like, is he puts in these little moments of levity where you'll have, a really super serious storyline drama or a lot of action or something. And you just sort of get this little lighthearted moments where you can just sort of laugh. And it's not necessarily like, haha, laugh out loud. But I just like the grandpa guy. He's a funny character to me. He's kind of endearing. And I just, I forget that dog always beats grandpa. And then the next panel, grandma. And it's just like, and just the look on the faces. You don't need to say anything anymore. And that's another thing that Kirkman does great is he doesn't keep beating the same drum. He made the joke, move on. So I like that. The whole, like, the Reggie, when he's like, oh yeah, I took care of the kid, like it was a joke. Obviously he didn't kill the kid, but that was kind of funny too. And then, yeah, the butterfly, which just leaves you hanging like, uh-oh, there's more going on. And then it leads right into the next scene.
It does. And the next scene, we go back to the Temple of the Flaming Fist. Waylon is there inhabiting his old space. And, very interesting how he and the Scorched Earth clan kind of went their own separate ways, though he's supposed to technically be a part of them. But he's at the temple now, and he's talking to Old Master Shaw, and just talking about how it's such a how the fire power is rediscovered, and his disciples are in change, and and you're just a myth, lifeless stone, such a disappointment, as he puts on as Master Wheelon puts on his Beats by Dre, and
Right?
is gonna go his whatever way he's gonna go, probably staying at the temple, maybe going and doing some training. But we get a big old panel, big old page of Master Shaw up there, and then we see, if you look below that, you see a snake crawling up to the statue, and then we see the snake right there close up, and that is where the issue is.
This is really cool. This last 2 pages summed up my feelings of the book, almost as if Kirkman understands what the reader is going to feel like. And right in this little dialogue, with Waylon, firepower is rediscovered. Your disciples are in chains. Then there's you. You are a myth, just lifeless stone. Such a disappointment. And puts his headphones on, walks away, and we see the statue just standing there immobile. And you look down, and it's like the way that the art is done is almost as if the eye is opened, because the snake's head appears right on the statue's eye. And I like the dichotomy of it, of the the idea of like, oh, the statue's awakened, which would be like the total stereotypical thing, right? The total cliche thing to happen right then. But it's not actually the eye, it's the serpent. But it's done, if you think about artistically, like that can't be just coincidence. Like this means something, that that old master is tied into this serpent. I'm betting, and that's all we get. So I felt a little bit of disappointment. I felt like this issue was a bit like Waylon feels like there. You didn't animate. You didn't give us what we all thought was going to happen. That's such a disappointment. But at the same time, just like this last scene here, like, oh, there is more to this issue. There is more going on here. And I'm looking forward on what's to come. So, I think that sums it up for me.
Yeah, I'm there with you. I I felt a little disappointed. I'm almost more disappointed in the fact that there were like over it being like an oversized issue and whatnot. I think that just the fact that there were like so many variants, and that made it feel like it was such a thing.
Yeah.
I think that's what kind of built it up for me, and that's where my disappointment comes from. It had it not been built up so much, I'd have been like, okay, yeah, issue 12, we are making progress in this story. We're touching on things. This is definitely the anti, Dawn of X. We are picking up these threads, and we are running with them. We're coming back to them. So all of that stuff is unraveling and being tied up as it should. But there was quite a bit of noise, so to speak, or emphasis put on this issue, all because of the number 12 more than the actual contents of the book. And it's unfortunate because the contents of the book are good. It's strong, it's entertaining, it's more than sufficient. But it was built up a little bit, so because it didn't quite live up to the expectations that I don't feel like I said. I didn't think some crazy thing was going to happen in this book. I didn't make up anything in my mind that said this is going to happen and this is going to happen and this is going to happen. I didn't do that as easy as it would have been to do, because they did very much lead us to some very specific conclusions. Though I didn't do that, I still feel the little bit of of disappointment. But at the same time, Kirkman leaves more than enough, to look forward to. So, hey, leaving off on the page that they did, with some of the things that they left in there, I'm more than still on, on the ride, and I'm looking forward to the next issue, especially if we go to the page that Ash has up right there, and it looks like we might time jump a little bit. She obviously looks a little older and more mature in there. The young man, his legs are longer. His jaw is a little more filled out and chiseled. He even has a button-up shirt underneath that sweatshirt. And I mean, Owen just looks even more sure of himself. I mean, in a way, he doesn't look like he's aged, but he does look like he's grown. So there's plenty to look forward to. And I noticed that we don't see Kelly in there though, which is interesting. Ash, what are you thinking about?
I don't know. I just noticed it was the kids actually for the first time. I didn't really pay attention too much of this page. The one thing that I wanted to just talk about, this made me feel good reading in the letters page of the book, a little part that Hickman states where he responds to the editor saying, "Oh, we just finished the 12th issue, blah, blah, blah." And Kirkman says, "Oh, yeah, this is a huge pivot point in the series. I know this issue could kind of seem like, wait, you built up to some scales in the water, but just trust me. From here on out, this book is nuts," as if it wasn't already. "We're going to go to some pretty awesome places starting next issue, so buckle up." And so that's why on that one scene I said, like, I saw it in a whole new light, as if this was like the origin complete, and now everything is set up for like the future of Firepower. That's kind of where I was taking it, was from this letters page and that scene. Like, these characters are now all have a common purpose, and I think it's going to be about whatever this serpent thing is, and so forth. So I'm very much looking forward to that, and I'm very appreciative that Kirkman is aware of that. Like, in the letters page, like, obviously he wrote this before there was any feedback of the book. He was kind of knowing where his audience was going to be, so I really appreciate an author being self-aware like that, to know what's going on in his work.
Yeah.
And like you said, I think you nailed it perfectly. If there had been no build up to this, if it had just been issue 12, this would be another awesome issue. I really enjoyed it. But it was like, oh, look, 12 different variant covers and all this stuff, and it's double sizes, blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, oh, something huge is going to happen. And when you don't get it and you're building that up in your mind, you're like, oh, you feel a little bit deflated. But I encourage people, if you felt that way, kind of, maybe consider all these things we're presenting, because I think most people will agree. I talked to my buddy about the book too. He was in the same page. I think a lot of people are like, that's like, yeah, it's good. They hyped it, So I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to the next. I'm excited to go into uncharted territory. I'm looking forward to see what other pieces of this universe that there is beyond just the Scorched Earth clan and the way of the Flaming Fist. I always felt like it was a very small world that Kirkman was building, and I'm excited to see that like blow up bigger and have a lot more things that the characters aren't aware even exist.
Absolutely, this thing is going to get bigger and bigger. That's overall. That's what I'm leaving issue 12 with, especially with seeing that image. On top of other things that we got in it is, we weren't sure. Ash, you and I, when we were, hey, is it gonna go past 12 issues? Are we gonna get a story that's gonna keep rolling out? We really weren't sure, and I think this really signifies that Kirkman and Samney and Russ Wooten and Matt Wilson have plans to just continue this story and for it to be ongoing. So that's exciting for me, and I like the fact that we've gotten to see Owen grow, and we'll continue to get to see him grow, but now we'll be able to see his kids grow as well, the family grow together, and hopefully Kelly too. She's not in there unless she's the fire, she I don't know. We'll see.
It might just be that this is a story that features the kids, and maybe that's why. I mean, I'm sure once we read the book, it'll make sense.
Yeah, I mean, and hey, like, his both of his kids could get the firepower, or maybe, just his daughter does, or maybe just.
So one thing I'm noticing right now, though, and Kirkman, this is another trope that Kirkman likes to do: the time jump. Do these kids look older to you on this cover?
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
Oh yeah,
How
I
the
totally spaced. I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah,
no
they
problem.
look.
Yeah, I was talking about how the son's jaw is more filled out, and like even his style, like he's got the button up shirt underneath his hoodie now. His legs are longer, like just signifying like not he's growing in all the ways that that we see children grow. Not only just physically but
Uh-huh.
stylistically and what they're into, as well as the daughter and
So he's the
her
younger. He's
fashion.
the younger of the two.
He's the younger
So
of the two. Yes.
So I'm guessing here, if I'm, it's hard with the artwork, but I'm gonna guess in this, like he's 15 and she's 16 or 17,
Sounds about right. Yeah.
and in the comic, it's like it's like 10 and 12. So if I'm right, this is like a 5-year jump. That'll be interesting.
Yeah. It seems about a 5-year jump. Yeah. 3 to 5 years,
You cool?
definitely.
Are you cool with that? If that's the case?
Um, I'm not the biggest fan of time jumps usually. If people use them in creative ways, of course it comes down to execution with me. As you're not a fan usually of love triangles, I'm not usually the biggest fan of jumps. I don't mind if people jump, like if you jump in time, if you jump forward in time and then jump back in time, like if you're telling like this, parallel like story, but just jumping the story forward years, I'm usually not a fan of that.
Well, he's already
But
done it
with
once, right?
Kirkman,
Remember?
yeah, he's already
15
he's already
years.
done it once. Yeah, 15 years, and I ended up being okay with it. That's exactly what I was about to say, and I ended up being okay with. It's like with Kirkman, I don't love all of his stuff, but when he does something that I'm normally not okay with, I have to be like, all right, Kirkman, just I'm gonna let you, I'm gonna let you do it. Like, let's see how it goes.
I don't like
Uh,
time jumps in
mhm.
mainstream comics, right?
Yeah.
Like I just look, it's Batman. It's just it stays whatever time roughly. Just don't jump. You don't go like 10 years later and be like, no, don't do that. Like it's keep it because it's an ongoing forever. We're gonna tell Batman forever and ever and ever. But we know this is gonna come to an end. Everything that Kirkman, even Walking Dead, came to an end.
Mhm.
So I know that this is going to come to an end. So I'm okay. Like if you want to jump through time, maybe the story ends where the kids are adults and they inherit the firepower or something, and or something, maybe that's I don't know where he's going with it, but sometimes you need to time jump to tell a bigger picture story like that where you can kind of see, and if you're coming to an end, I'm okay with that because you're not ruining anything. They kind of did with Spider-Man. Like, oh, look, they made Spider-Man all grow up and become CEO of his own corporation. Like, where do you go from here now? We can't. You fundamentally like went off the cliff with the character, and you had to like reboot because you destroyed. And Spider-Man's not supposed to end. you know,
Right.
this book is supposed to end, so that's why I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm with. Understandable. Absolutely.
All right. Zach says Kelly is the new Daryl. If she dies, we riot. Well, we need to. Speaking of Daryl and rioting, we need to get into the next book because we got some time constraints, and I love talking about firepower, and it's easy to let time get away from me. So UltraMega.
UltraMega
is ultra and it's mega. Now I did a
Yeah.
I did a full video on this for the first
Mhm.
issue, so we can probably go pretty quick through the first issue and give your thoughts. I gave a ton of my thoughts on that video already, so I can just give some very just minor things. I'll let you kind of monopolize the first issue if you want. We can get
Sure.
through this.
Did you wanna go first and give your quick, or did you want to give your quick after I go?
Um, No, don't just take the lead on this. Like because I'm like I said, I did a video on this. I've talked so much about this book. I have heard almost nothing from you, even behind the scenes, about this book. So I'm very excited. So if you don't mind just taking it away, and I'll just, like a good dance partner, I'll follow your lead.
Let's do. Ultra Mega got on my radar because of Nick Dragata. Dragata and James know each other, and he was like telling me like, "Oh yeah, man, like because obviously Nick likes cyberpunk stuff and dystopian stuff. He likes Japanese culture, and I like a lot of different parts of entertainment portions of Japanese culture. Tokusatsu, Ultraman was something I was into when I was younger, and I was into like all the old Mothra, Godzilla, Megalon, all those old movies and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, so this was I was like, oh yeah, this seems kind of right up my alley. I'll definitely grab it. So I was all gung ho, and I grabbed the first one, and then I ended up getting like three different types of issue number one, like the different covers, the right white cover, and all that other stuff. I got Trad Moore's cover because I'm after reading Silver Surfer Black, I just liked Trad Moore even more. But for the story itself, I was going into it and I was gonna be completely content if it was just like a like a kaiju story that was decently executed because I'm into that. But it was this story has like a lot of depth to it. James Harren took a lot of time and a lot of care to set up backstories. With the kaiju's kind of coming from some like cosmic type force, and and being handed down to a person, and then that person, like kind of being the man on the low end of the totem pole, and you know, and there being him not being the only kaiju, there being multiple others, but I like the fact that there was a whole world set up, and there was time put into the world building of it, as well as the individuals. The type of beasts is what's still interesting, and I'm still trying to kind of get a grasp on that. I like how the monsters were designed and whatnot. But how the Ultra Mega have to team up together. I like how they're they get jacked up, from arms getting ripped off to legs getting ripped off. You do get the destruction and whatnot, that is very common in Japanese stories told in this fashion. And that was really where some of the art shined. I love all the details, like in the cars and the buildings and the scale of it all. You really felt like the destruction, mattered and whatnot. But I like the care that was given. I like that it was kind of, I mean, which is typical, low end of the low end, a person on the low end of the totem pole, gets imbued with this power, because they are, some form of a respectful person. Usually they're a family man, and all of these things were in there. And, I even like some of the things that he did where, when he's coming down from, being big and being tall and being the ultra mega, like sometimes like not all of his limbs all go back to the same size normally. Like his head was like extra large for a while and stuff like that. But issue number one did a really good job of making you care about the person, the main protagonist that we follow as the Ultra Mega, all of his family issues, and then the people that he teams with, and how the sacrifice that they make. They go in rarely knowing if they really are going to have what it takes, but they are, essentially like the last stand of how the community and the city around them is has any chance of surviving it. And even when they do their best, it doesn't always work out. And the destruction to the city. I mean, the city got destroyed at one point in time, like purely by the blood of a ultra mega that was trying to defeat be sacrificed his life and gave it. And even his wife and the kid ended up kind of getting displaced because of the blood and whatnot, and the baby got found. And I like how that was part of the continuation of the story. You know, after we follow that Ultra Mega, and he gives his life to defend the city and especially his family, you know, who's within the city and so close. You know, the city goes through, you know, a big old tragedy, and they got to rebuild, and they find a whole new way to kind of you know, deal with the society. They say, okay, we're going to deal with the problem like this. If you have the potential to have this gene that can make you, whether you're a kaiju or the ultra mega, either one, we're going to put you on this side of the wall, and you know, kind of, you know, we'll take care of you. We're going to send rations of food and all these other things. But the humanity is trying to find some way, because they can't do it by raw might. The ultra mega was what defended them, so they're like, okay, well, if we can't match power with this beast, you know, these beasts that we're fighting, then what we'll try to do, we'll go down to like where it starts. We'll nip it in the bud. So hey, if you can be either one of these things, we're going to put you over here on this side of the wall. We're going to try to take care of you. And everybody that does not possess that gene, if you don't have that potential inside of you, then you can live within the walls because you're considered a safer type of person, and you can live you know, more of a normal type of life. And when we zoom in on those people that are living, you know, on the outskirts, we find out, you know, that it kind of has a little bit of the normal dystopian, you know, like gangs, and some people, you know, are like gonna lean into it, and they're even inspired by what you know, the ultra mega that were around, and others are inspired by the beast, and they want to lean into that side of things, and the monsters, you know, have their clan, and you know, and people are still clashing, but we see that there's a new person, this new younger protagonist that we think we're going to follow for the rest of the story, and that's kind of where we end off. So overall, I was surprised at the complexity of the story, it having so many of the tropes that make these types of kaiju stories, but also not being so typical that James Harren didn't have his own ideas of the type of story that he wanted to tell within there. And it was cool to see, like, you know, the layers and how much of a journey we went on. And I'm sure we'll talk about, you know, how some of those expectations were subverted in a bit of a pleasant way in issue number 2.
Right. Very good. Right. Well done, man. That was really well said. Succinct too. Sometimes I'm jealous of being able to do that and get to my point. I did a video on this book, so if you guys are curious and you're not able to read it, I was about to say if you're too lazy to read it yourself, I don't want to insult the audience, but if you don't, for whatever reason, can't read it, don't want to read it, I did a video on the first issue that summarizes kind of what did happen. So we're kind of going through, we're kind of bypassing that one for this show. We're going to come start with the second issue, and focus on the new protagonist, who is this kid here on the cover. But if you, like I said, if you want to know more details, as well as a lot of my thoughts on that book, I just didn't feel like, you know, this show already has enough time crunch as it is to go through all that as well. It was a 30-minute video that I did on this book. This book absolutely is worth that attention. I encourage you very much to go check that out, and get a load of this. This book is my number one book of 2021. Absolutely. It's 5 stars. I don't give 5 stars out much. This book blew me away, and I feel like I didn't come across it right away. I didn't dive right into it because I'm not really into the tokusatsu stuff, and I like the big kaiju stuff in theory. Like I grew up with Godzilla movies, and they were always fun, but they were fun for the wrong reasons. Like and I love Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim is the first one. It's one of my favorite movies, but it's hard to replicate that in comics. Like that it worked because it was a movie, because it was so visually like, oh my God, I'm watching giant robots fight giant kaiju, and it looks real. Drawings of it just doesn't do it for me. Like, oh, look, there's a drawing of Godzilla. Like, it's whatever. And I'm not saying anything negative to people who that is for. I'm just saying it doesn't work for me. And so I just like, oh, UltraMega. Oh, cool, it's a kaiju book. you know. And if you say it's the best kaiju book ever, Ash, and I go, yeah, but it's still a kaiju, you know. It's like, it's just not for me. Until I read it. And this is why it's always good to be open-minded and give things a chance, because sometimes things that aren't in your wheelhouse, you think like, I'm just not interested in underwater basket weaving. Well, maybe someone maybe someone can figure out a way to do it that you are interested. And UltraMega was exactly that for me. So, and I think it's because of what you said too, and what your statement. There was an underlying complexity to this story that was so much more than what I normally see in like Power Rangers or Godzilla, right? It's Power Rangers at its heart is a very super simple, oh, look, it's a team of tokusatsu characters that form up and they defeat the giant monster. And there's not a whole lot more to it. And there doesn't necessarily need to be, because the people who want that, they're getting it in spades over and over. If you like to see Godzilla tear up a city and that's all you care about, you're going to get it. But this book, the reason I overlooked this book is because I just thought that's all it was going to be. And that complexity of these characters and like what's going on in this world really grabbed me. And then it made all that other stuff that people love, like Godzilla tearing up the city or the tokusatsu characters forming up to beat the monsters, like it made all that mean so much more to me. So here's issue 2. I'll let you take it away.
Absolutely. Issue number 2. So we do pick up exactly where we left off with that new protagonist that that it seems like we're going to, kind of, oh, excuse me. We don't pick up exactly there. We do go back. We do go back with a little more backstory, which is good, because even the Ultra Mega itself and whatnot has cosmic origins, and we did know that from seeing how it first got bestowed to the person that was harnessing it in issue number 1. But we do straight up get like some of my favorite type of stuff, cosmic origins, from there was nothing and then there was everything. I don't know how many times I've seen that, like,
right,
or whatnot, but I'll tell you, like, when it's accompanied by good art, it doesn't get old to me. It's a cool little comic trope. But we get like a box, a cube that crashes into this planet place, and we get an Ultra Mega coming out of it. And we see that the conflict between the Ultra Mega and those monsters and whatnot, the kaiju, they're it's a age old tale. They've been battling things out for so long, fighting in between different planets and galaxies and all of that stuff. But it's the spirit of the of the Ultra Mega, the warrior inside of it, and that is essentially the motor that propels it to go forward and to continue to fight against, this crazy, force. But all of this is kind of being told by the little eyeball that we had seen in issue number 1, being given to the guy that did harness the power of Ultra Mega back on Earth. And as we zoom out, we kind of see that he's in a particular place. It doesn't seem like he's doing well, and he's not inhabiting it right now. And get more of an idea of kind of the state of the city. That's when we catch back up with the kid that we left off with last time, who had pulled out like some kaiju, or excuse me, that pulled out some Ultra Mega tech and was confronting people that seemed to be from the kind of the kaiju street gang. So after he takes out a few of them, a chase ensues, and he kind of gets led back to, like one of like their little mini headquarters, and he tries to fight him off and ward him off, but the leader there, gets to jump on him, and is holding, like a gun to his head. So we're, naturally, if you're reading, you're like, all right, let's see how he gets out of this one. But he gets shot right in the head. Like he's out, he's gone. That's it. Like he really gets shot. So they collect some things from him. He has one of these cubes, and and these cubes are what is used as like a almost like renewable energy, like an energy source for things within this world, and that'll play a bigger role later. But as the henchman for the kaiju clan is kind of talking, we see that the the young boy that we thought that got shot in the head, it's actually a drone. He gets up and starts talking, and we see the inner workings of him, and he starts laughing, and then he explodes. So it was not an actual boy that got killed after all, and who he had met. It was actually just a drone being controlled by a boy that remotely, that's in a whole nother section. So uh, we get introduced to him, and we found out his name is Noah. And we get introduced to some of the people that he's working with, the people that actually create the technology that he's using. We find out more about the world that they're living in, and they're needing a food run, and they're running low on food. So he's the person, since he bailed out on the last mission, that gets put up to go and get the food. So as they're all packing up to go into town and get the food, we find out kind of why he's been fighting, and there's a deeper story, behind him. He's missing someone named Seth, and he's just talking about how he misses him and how he's been separated, and that is part of the reason why he continues to wage on the fight. Though his friend tells him like, "Hey, we can't just be fighting these people. We need to stay low key. We need to stay off the radar. At least till we get the cube, and then we can get our big machine working." We find out that they've got like what would you call that, Ash? Like a ultra mega? Like,
Well, they're
I don't
making
even know
like
what
the
to
Titans
say.
with the tech. Like that was one of the things. One of the original 3 Ultra Megas. One of them was like a robot builder, and when the
Mhm.
city got destroyed, miraculously his tower was one of the few surviving things. Like all humanity was put to work to start building these quote unquote Titans to fight the kaiju, because there were no Ultra Megas anymore. The last Ultra Mega died, which caused the Great Flood, which was the baby you had talked about. Which I love the symbolism, by the way, that the character's name is Noah, who's the
Mhm.
baby that survived the flood.
Yep, the blood
Um,
flood, Noah's
yeah,
Ark,
when
or Noah's Noah's Ultra,
so he's the
Noah's
son of
Titan.
the Ultra Mega that died, and the giant body, like all the blood, it's pretty gross. Like floods the city, and the mom holds him above the water, so to speak, and he survived. So this is like a 15 years later sort of thing. He's now a kid living out in the outskirts, and yeah, humanity only has robots to turn to.
Right, exactly. And of course what's interesting, but it's apparent, is he was put on the outskirts of the city, so he is one of the people that has the potential of, those powers manifesting. So I think it's going to be interesting, to see how all that plays out. But where we're at now is the Titan is their best shot at it, and they need to stay low key and off the radar until they get one of those cubes that can power it, and then they got a shot at basically bringing the world back together, because that's the stigma. If they can get rid of the kaiju, then the humanity in the place that they live is not going to be worried about, not as worried about people being separated. So this is their shot at getting the world back on track, as well as him avenging Seth, because there's some personal skin in the game. But um, we're back at that the HQ for the Kaiju clan, and they're going around, and the Kaiju King is kind of taking note of what's been left, and that technology, that drone that they use, it was supposed to be completely gone, and no traces of it. That's what Noah was trying to reassure, but that's not the case. There's parts of it missing, and of course they're going to use that to try to uh, track it back to the person that was powering it. And we get a whole display, a dream sequence of of a fight occurring. Now, Ash, I'm gonna be honest with you. This is one of the parts. Usually, I feel like I like these parts, but I didn't really know what to take from, you know basically the kaiju smashing. I mean, excuse me, the Ultra Mega smashing the kaiju into pieces, and then like devouring devouring like the body parts of it. What did you take from that part? And then like being stabbed and waking up from the dream.
I wasn't quite sure either. I took it as one of
I
those
mean, obviously
things.
related to Seth,
Yeah, yeah.
but
I took it
outside of that, I'm
as
not sure in what way.
I took it as one of those things like how dreams just sometimes are just bizarro weird, and
Yeah.
like they just don't make sense. That's kind of how I took it. Now the other thing is, in this particular universe, the kaiju and the ultra mega are sort of like yin and yang. They're sort of almost like cosmic entities in a way. They're not human in any sort of fashion, and the kaiju, the way the kaiju are formed actually are through this virus. So every kaiju on Earth is a human that got infected with the kaiju virus and then becomes this monster. The ultra megas are kind of the same way. We're
Yep.
not really 100% sure, but the original one from the first issue puts the eyeball or whatever like onto them and gives them this power, but I feel like it's also due to some sort of infection. I don't know if there's some sort of prey predator relationship. It was bizarre to me too. I think it was meant to intentionally be confusing.
Yeah, I believe so. And which it's fine because this is one of the few places where we get something like that at, and they do pick up the stream later on, and we see a little bit more of who Seth was and how Seth was, and kind of what he meant to the city, not just to Noah. And being that we got that, I strongly believe that as we continue to go, down the story issue by issue, we're going to like this is basically a piece of the puzzle, and we're going to continue to get these pieces of the puzzle that relate to Seth to see how it all goes out. But yes, that virus, the kaiju virus, as well as the ultra mega side of things, is why people have been put, let's say, on the other side of the wall, to kind of keep them away from the population that that does not have the potential to be either one of those things. And the eyeball signifies that, like, if you are the person who gets the eyeball, you kind of get like a special form of the ultra mega, or you're almost like picked out to to be the elite of the ultra mega, so to speak. So that's why Noah, being a descendant of the person that got that special privilege of having the eye and being like the elite ultra mega, if you will. Why part of the reason why Noah is so important. But after we get the dream sequence and a little bit of the flashbacks to Seth, and we see that there's some kind of keepsakes that relate back to Seth and Noah's times with Seth. We go on the trip to do the food drop, so everybody heads into the city, and we kind of see how busy the that part of the city that they can access outside of the wall is. People selling wares, technology, all sorts of things. The truck that they have, they look away for a second, and people are already running away with stuff, so they got to go chase the person down with the cart, and the person comes face to face with a big dusty man with the hammer, and which he calls the molar, and it does look like a big old tooth, and we get a little bit of the backstory behind that. It actually goes back to that person fighting along with Seth, and and their history that they have, and kind of you get a little bit of an idea of the sacrifice that Seth made in order for things to continue. Now, as the people from the other side of the wall start dropping the containers of rations and food, we see the like the semi henchmen of the Kaiju King show up and stating like, "Hey, we're gonna take these. These ones belong to us." And then that guy, he comes up and he's like, with the big old molar thing, he's like, "No, you guys aren't gonna take it. These people need this food. I won't have it." And the Kaiju King guy kind of reminds him that, hey, we got attacked. We had a truce. We got attacked by somebody who seems like they were part of the Ultra Mega Clan, and that violates the treaty that we have. So therefore, we're gonna take this food, or you can give up the person who it was that violated the treaty from your side, so nobody goes hungry. And unfortunately, I can't even say unfortunately, that is a tough spot to be in, but
Super
the
tough
man
spot.
gives up. Super tough, right? Like,
And then so many
I
times
mean,
you've seen this in other books where they're like, no,
mhm.
you can't have him. Like everyone, and this went the other way around. I was shocked.
Me too. I was like, and again, part of the storytelling, what keeps me engaged in this book is, hey, this is very much is its own tale with its own twist. It's unique, but gives up the boy, says his name is Noah, and even tells them where he is. Like it might have been enough to secure the food for the people, just giving him the name,
Mm-hmm.
but gives up the name and the location at the time, and sure enough, they go and they round up not only Noah but also the people that had come with him. So we see that there's a rest stop, and at the rest stop, the Kaiju King is being taken over inside of there, and they're also, kind of cleaning up the mess that they that had happened over at the HQ with the drone bomb going off. So they are dumping bodies and whatnot too. And what we see in one of the bodies that got dumped, or at least within the dump itself, is that the eyeball is there, and the eyeball had basically hitched a ride closer into where that city is, and then where that city is within the rest stop. We're going to see that the eyeball is really trying to get to a specific destination. Um, it's almost like it's almost like destiny. I feel, which is a cool element to the story. I'm always into like some, a destined battle and struggle and whatnot in a position that someone's supposed to take. And Ash, how did you? Because issue number one, you did a whole thing on, but issue number two, how was it?
Yeah, this one it took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting like a 15-year time jump after the first issue. I thought the first issue was, hey, these are our heroes, like, and it wasn't. It was all backdrop story, sort of like prequels, if you will, to the main story, and it seems to be it's going to be all about Noah. And this eyeball, by the way, my take on this, the eyeball is actually from that last page. You see the fist
Yeah.
of the UltraMega. If you remember in the first issue, before he dies, the UltraMega does his like super power fist and he shoots it into the ground. But he ripped out the eyeball. It was embedded in his chest. That gives him his power. He like ripped it out and said, "You need to find a new hero." There was a big epic scene, and he shoots it down into the ground. And here we are, where that fist is still there, and that eyeball. My impression is the eyeball that the UltraMega ripped out, and said, "Find the new hero." That's part of the original being that gave him his power, and that's why I think he's living there in that little shack into the shadow of that fist. That's my take. But yeah, I love the whole world. Like you get the second issue and it's like it felt like another number one. Like but I mean that in a good way, because now it's a whole story of not Owen, why am I saying Owen? Noah growing up in this like battered sort of shanty town outside the main city that they built the wall on. Everyone has to live outside the city because they've developed a way to detect if you have the virus. Now, if you're a little confused, if you haven't read the books, the way it works, if you become a kaiju, you get the kaiju virus, you become a kaiju, but you only get activated in the presence of an UltraMega. So in the original story, that's what would happen. Like one of the three UltraMega characters, they'd be walking through the city and they'd walk past someone who had the virus, and then that would trigger them and they'd be like, blah, 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 turn into a big monster, and then the UltraMega would have to fight them and stuff. But now there aren't any UltraMega. So the ones with the viruses are sort of like, they're either it's a dormant virus and nothing happens. I don't know exactly how that works. But anyways, the humanities figured out that they can tell. So they said, you got to live outside the city. But the kaiju that exist, you'll see they're just human sized. They're real small. And so so far where I'm at in the story, they haven't really explained too much, but my take is because there isn't an UltraMega, it hasn't really triggered that. And so Owen and his people, they're trying to petition, like, look, we're not infected, let us back in the city. But of course humanity's like, no. And and they're trying to get their tech and do things. And I think this eyeball being is a remnant of the UltraMega Prime. I don't even know what you call them. The book is so weird. I don't know. It hasn't unveiled enough of its lore for me to really understand even how to define what's going on. I just call him the eyeball, which I feel is weird. But I absolutely loved this, the whole the world building of the gangs. Like they have the kaiju kingdom is what they're called, and they just like basically it's a cult. They just worship the kaiju, which you would totally believe if there really were kaiju and you were cast off and you didn't have the protection of the rest of humanity. You'd be like, okay, I guess we'll go embrace the villains and hope they don't kill us because we'll join them. And it's a really cool world. This character Otis, I love this scene here because number one, I just like cool things like his hammer is called the molar, and then they explain like there was a kaiju molar in the wall, like embedded, and he carves out from the molar the hammer. Just little bits of detail like that I thought was really cool. Yeah, this was all a bunch of world building scene. The art in this book is fantastic. Like no amount of detail is spared. I mean, look at here, like you're just looking at the little gas station that's like their little hangout or their home. And it's just the detail of the little cart that he gets to take to market and try to sell and get goods. I mean, everything, it's beautiful. And the coloring when you get these giant kaiju scenes, it's just, this book is eye popping. And it has an equally good story to go along with it. This is one of those rarities where the marriage of writing and art just feel like, I mean, obviously it's the same writer and artist, so that always helps too. But I love the scene here where Otis, I just totally expected him, because the villain's like, back you into a corner. You either turn him in or we're going to take your stuff. We got a treaty, and he's just abusing the law that they made. And Otis is like, I speak for Avalon when I say, and you're just like waiting for him to be like, we're going to, nope, I know your man. We'll turn him in. You're like, what? And you can even see the expression on Noah's face. I mean, he's just like dripping in sweat and stuff. And he's like, oh no, they turned me in. Yeah. And it's just, I don't know. It's one of those books that completely floors me. It came out of nowhere. I never expected to like it. It never, if you show it to me and say, hey, Ash, here's a book for you, I'd be like, nah, not my cup of tea. Ed Brewer in the chat, he's saying art is so. I would have thought that in the beginning, but once you read the book, I don't know. I think this is art that grows on you. It grew on me. At first, I just thought it was like weird style, overly stylized, but his ability to visually tell a story is amongst the best in the business. And the style of the art sort of disappeared. And as far as just being like style for style's sake, some artists have that, like people accuse Riley Rossmo being that. And I don't think that at all anymore. I think this guy's art is, it is very stylistic. It's not the realistic, typical comic book art. This is not a Marvel or DC type thing, but for this book, it is absolutely fitting. I mean, I'm just sitting here staring at this garbage truck or dump truck or whatever this thing is, and I'm just floored by the design and the detail put into this. I'm absolutely in love with this book. What more do you have to say?
I mean, that's, it all kind of works. It all kind of works, together with the art and the writing. The art is how the world is built up, and like the big spreads and stuff like that, and structures. And I do enjoy the colors. I feel like the colors, obviously help along, and I feel like Dave Stewart, was a great person to get to color it, and it does help. It helps the line art pop, but I appreciate the detail, within it. And that's kind of the thing about, I've heard the term image art, and there was a time where I was like, image. Why do people say image art? And I was reading image books, and then I was like, I mean, mind you, this is like when I was reading Tokyo Ghost too, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I see what they mean. Like, yeah, I guess it's not as good as the art over at Marvel and DC. And but like you read books like Low, and you read books like Seven to Eternity, and whatever else, even the Arden's Scumbag, or all these different artists, and it's just stylized. What it is it's more of its own style of art than it is so much of the Clay. I mean, which I enjoy Clayman, but Clayman and Mikhail Janin and all of those things where maybe anatomy in like a very specific style is is thought to be the best, and needs to be what is considered good. This is just a different style, and a lot of these artists, they have their own approach to it, and I appreciate that because it kind of widens the world of art where I don't feel like, the only way that I can feel like I'm getting my money's worth, or, or getting good art is if it looks like this one specific thing. And that's cool. If people aren't into it, that's totally fine. But what I like is that it's like, if you think about kaiju and how rough and rugged, they are, and you go back to old Godzilla movies and scales and, things kind of being broken and reptilian, and then the scale of things within cities and all of that stuff. James Harren, delivers on every single point of that professionally, while also kind of giving it his own style. And like I said, him building his own type of kaiju story, and then having it look his own specific way, kind of all supports it. So I have an appreciation for it for that reason. But I like I said, I bought this book to support someone. Didn't plan on buying an issue 2. Had no plans of it. I read it, and I ended up buying multiple issue number 1s, because I have an appreciation that someone is telling a unique story. And for me, as someone who's a comic book, reader, whether I'm reading Big Two or whether I'm reading indie books, I've read so much of the same type of story, and there's nothing wrong with, if you want to order, the best Big Mac at the best, McDonald's in the city, 5 nights in a row, 7 nights in a row. I'm never going to tell you how to, spend your money if you ain't asking me. Like, enjoy every morsel of that Big Mac. Enjoy it. But I'm trying to hit like Wendy's on Monday night, Chick-fil-A on Tuesday night. I'm going to get around to McDonald's. You're going to have to wait, but I'm going to get around to you. But like, I like to switch things up, and not have the same thing ever so often. So I get that with the, with the non-typical story. I'm not always super like, this is how it is. I would predict stories and movies and books and so much that, like, after a while it got boring to me, and then I had to train myself to not disappoint myself because I would figure out the stories. So when I get one that I can't figure out, and not just because I can't figure it out, but I can't figure it out, and it actually leads to something else, you got my respect, and you may even keep getting my money. James Harren's gonna get a few more bucks from me. That's for sure.
This is a guy that I did not even know existed until this book. And I had seen his stuff elsewhere. He did a book called Rumble that I'm now checking out because it's on Comixology Unlimited. And I'm just fascinated. He didn't write it. John Arcudi wrote it. And also he has art in the newest Batman Black and White. If anyone's reading that book, it's an anthology. One of the stories, also James Arcudi wrote it, and he did the art. And I did flip through that and look, and it's cool because now I'm a fan of this guy's art, but I can definitely see when put in a mainstream presentation that I'm like, oh yeah, this looks off. Like when I'm looking at Batman, because I have a feel like here's how it should look. And your mainstream comics sort of have trained you. This is how comic art should look. And so I can understand a lot of people looking at this and going, the art, whatever. And look, it's absolutely true. Art is subjective. Absolutely. And I fully get it because I brushed this guy off and was like, whatever. Sometimes you need to immerse yourself into an artist to discover what it is that's so good about him. And I think James Harren is what you would call like an artist's artist. He's the kind of guy that I think a lot of professionals will look at and go, I wish I could do this, even though they're the ones who are probably more popular than he is. And it's just, it's the intangible. I don't want to say intangibles. That's not right. There's just a certain way that he puts together pages. And when you read the book, and instead of just looking at the art out of context, like you might just be on the screen right now and just going, oh, I look at a panel, and just looking at the art in that panel as a pinup rather than a visual piece of like storytelling. When you go through the book, like I said, I've read all these books multiple times now, and it's just, there are few artists in the business that can do what James is doing. And I'm not talking about on an illustration level, right? There's the Clay Manns who are like impeccable illustrators, but they're not the best storytellers. And if you're not into that, like I said, everyone's going to like what they like. I'm not trying to tell you, I'm just trying to encourage you to give other things a chance, and they may grow on you, because they grew on me, and I came to enjoy something. So I always want people to reach the same level of enjoyment that I had on things. This is a book I stumbled on, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so high on this book, and I feel inadequate of portraying why it's so good by talking about it. I'm glad that you like it too, though, because I really want to try, at least on the show, and get into covering it. Ed asks about the cover price in the chat. Now, the cover price is something that I have to almost be a little hypocritical on, because I quit DC because they're raising cover prices, and I have always, I say all the time, $3.99 is too much for a comic. These books are not cheap. They're $7.99, and that's enough to make you grab your balls and cough. But the first issue is 66 pages, so it's like a triple-sized issue. So, and unlike the DC, it's not one comic and a backup story. It's 66 pages, no ads, of pure awesomeness. And I don't truly feel like a hypocrite, because I do feel that this book is something special. I'm paying $7.99 because it's a mega-sized book of page after page of what I feel is eye-popping artwork and a story to match. And I've already read these books multiple times. Normally, I'm the kind of person that reads a book and then waits a couple years and reads it again. For me to read it right away is astonishing, and I'm just absolutely in love with it. And I think most people will kind of agree, when there's something that they absolutely love, they're willing to spend money on it. And so whether you're going to love it, that's going to be up to you. But part of this show is to kind of get giddy about things that we love and be advocates for it. I hope that we have at least piqued your interest in trying it out. Like I said, I did a whole episode on the first issue that covers the plot of the detail and why I think it's as good as it is. I encourage you to check out. Not every book is going to be everyone's cup of tea, no matter how great it is. I know people in the chat right now that did not like some of the greatest comics perhaps ever made. So it's the subjectivity. But at least I just hope that you'll maybe be open-minded, because the whole purpose is I want you to love something. That's all it is. And if you don't, it's a bummer, but I'm going to keep reading this book. Skip, I'm so glad you're going to keep reading on it. In 2 weeks' time, we're going to be doing the next episode. We're going to be covering Erratic as the backup book. And then I believe the plan is to come episode after that. 2 weeks after time, we'll be covering UltraMega 3, and then 4 should be out. So if this is a book that you're reading, grab those books and join us, because I like when you guys participate with us and give us your thoughts. That's a huge plus for us. Like we're not here to just talk at you. We want to engage you and get your opinions as much as let you hear ours. So hopefully you'll get those. Hopefully you'll get Erratic. We're going to continue doing Firepower. We also I have to check the dates. DECORUM is coming out. The final issue of DECORUM we'll be covering. So please continue to give us your recommendations. Give us your thoughts and feelings about the books that we talk about, even if you disagree. Skip, did you have any final thoughts on this book or any other books you want to talk before we put a bow on the show?
Um, if you're looking, I would say this, because yes, the cover price, it's $8, which you do get, like, you get more, it's not quite double size, but you do get more pages than you get in typical comic. But go in your comic shop, if you're not, especially if you're not in a digital, you can get it for, like, I think it's $5 online through Comixology. But just go into your comic shop, find issue number 1, and just, like, read the first 3 to 5 pages. You will be surprised by the writing. I was even saying that, like, even the vernacular, as this is, someone who's the whole stigma of, like, the writer and the penciler, or whatever, and maybe people sometimes feeling like they won't be as sufficient when it comes to the dialogue. I was surprised by the vernacular, the words themselves. I was surprised by the dialogue and all of those things. And when I saw how well the writing itself, the actual words, were being used and executed, I was like, oh gosh, okay, well then he's okay. So I'm like, okay, check that off. He's good at writing. He uses the words well, and he uses good words. But because of that, is he going to showcase it and make it too wordy? And did a really good balancing of, like, like, again, in Firepower, stepping off the gas, letting some of the illustrations and whatnot tell the story when it was appropriate, not being too wordy. I hadn't gotten to a single part in the book, as well as James Harren writes, I hadn't gotten to a single part in the book where he was too wordy. And I thought that was really good, especially, using, high brain, dialogue in the cosmic parts, speaking all cosmic, like, what we're used to, the way that cosmic people speak in comic books, and the words that they use. And then when it was, like, lower level street, people and those humans, like, talking like we would expect those people if we ran into them ourselves or if we knew them. So all of that stuff is handled very well. And like I said, all of that on top of it not being so easy to guess and not being so typical. It checks all the boxes, and it's got spirit in its own style. So yeah, just read a few pages. I think if you read just like how the book is, if you read the first 5 pages and you don't feel like just a quality check, if you don't feel like the quality between the art, the writing, and how it all works together is there, then maybe not. But if those check, if all those boxes are checked for you in the first few pages, I would say grab the book, because where he takes the story and then on a larger level, you will be very surprised. So yeah, continue with us, and then of course we'll be talking about other books as we do on here. Just putting a spotlight on indie books as more and more of these creators leave the big two. Like, they're going to be making their own books, and it's a good idea that our LCSs and us amongst ourselves share which ones that we're reading, so we can spread the goodness around and be fulfilled as comic book readers.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, I know it's a dead horse that I keep beating, but you got to spread word of mouth. There's the best comics that are out there don't get the attention they deserve, even at the big two. The best book at Marvel is Daredevil, poor sales. The best book at DC was Hawkman, canceled for poor sales. A lot of comic fans are more than happy to buy mediocre books. That may or may not be you. I'm not trying to force a shoe on your foot, but that's just a fact that we have to come to terms with. And if you are a person who's like, look, I really want to find great books, I can't 100% guarantee you're going to love this book, like I said, because there is subjectivity. There's books that I love that Skip doesn't, and books that Skip loves that I don't. But I can unequivocally tell you, like, this is one of the best books. I mean, there are books I go and I like because they fit my bias, right? I'm a Scott Snyder fan, so I like Noctera. I like the concept, of the book. So I'm predisposed to like that book, but I readily admit it's not a 5-star book. But I still love it. I mean, and I give out 5 stars very rarely. UltraMega was jaw dropping for me. It's still like I am shocked. This book, it's like Hawkman to me. I want people to discover it and find it and go, holy crap, I thought I would hate this book. And it's really freaking cool. Because it is. And it has so much to offer. I mean, it's got the tokusatsu stuff or whatever for people who like that stuff. That's fine. It's got a bit of the bizarro, weird horror stuff that Sam Raimi brings that I love. There's parts of the book that I was like, oh my God, that's ripped right out of Evil Dead. But it was done in a cool way, nice homage. Like, it's got those aspects. It's got a bit of kind of Mad Max feel storytelling. It's got a bit of like everything. And it feels fun and vibrant like a good comic book should. It's not overly dark and serious like so many modern comics are trying to be so adult. It's not doing that, but yet it's not silly, overly childish either. It's that nice medium where it has that youthful vigor, but yet a story that adults will appreciate. It's definitely not a kid's book. It's a pretty violent book. But I feel at a loss for words to like really point it. You have to just read an issue. I think if you just read issue number 1, you'll know. You'll see what like Skip said. And I 100% agree. The writing blew me away. I was like, okay, this guy's an artist. He's trying to do his own book. We've seen that a million times. Todd McFarlane. And you're not always means you can write well. But this guy is one of those guys, at least for UltraMega. I don't know if he could write other projects. I don't know yet. Jury's still out. But he knows how to write this story. And it's 100% working out. I'm so looking forward to every issue. Issue 4 will be the final issue of the first story arc. So if you are a person who wants to wait for trades, I imagine the first 4 issues will be in a trade, although it'll be a pretty monstrous trade because these are gigantic issues. Like I said, the books themselves, they're big. What else? So we're going to come back with Erratic. HR goes vocal. The artist formerly known as FF2 says he still recommends the Deaths of Lila Starr. The mini Deaths of Lila Starr. Which
been enjoying that.
Which I still need to check out. Doug Johnson says he's been reading UltraMega. I initially liked it, but something about 3 really turned me off. So 4 will decide if I stay on it or not. They are saying 4 is the end of the first story arc, correct? Eric Breen says, America, transcendent book, low sales. Oh, that's a funny one, Eric. I like when Eric Breen's in the chat. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for participating in the chats with us. It's very much enjoyable to read along as we're doing the show. As always, if you're watching this afterwards, leave comments down below whether you liked about the show, what you didn't like about the show, what you would wish was in the show, what books you're reading. All those sort of things are very much interesting to us. We actually, it's not lip service. I do care. I read every comment. And so leave that down below. Catch us in 2 weeks' time. And don't forget, this Wednesday will be Criminal Cast featuring the first trade for The Fade Out, which is the first 4 issues of that series. So please go ahead, find that book if you don't have it already. Read it. Join us Wednesday. It's on Comixology Unlimited, so if you have that, you don't even need to buy it. And Eric Breen will be on there, so if you need any other reason to be there, you got Eric Breen. I mean, that's all the star power we need. And that's it. I'll let Skip say the goodbyes, and we'll be done.
Goodbye. We're done.